Slowly rose over a quiet village, a place where life moved gently and people woke up with hope and hard work in their hearts. In a small mud house at the edge of the village lived a young boy named Rahim. His clothes were old, his shoes were torn, but his eyes always carried a soft spark. A spark that never fully died, even when life tried to crush it. Rahim was not like the other kids. He was thin, hungry most days, and had never owned a new school bag. Every morning he walked to school barefoot because his shoes had broken long ago. Yet he still tried. He still wanted to study. He still hoped that school would change something in his life. But school was the one place that hurt him the most. Rahim always sat in the last row. He tried to understand the lessons, but the words on the board looked confusing to him. The letters danced, the numbers twisted, and everything felt blurry. Whenever the teacher asked a question, Rahim froze. His voice stuck in his throat, and the other students laughed. They always laughed. "Rahim, you failed again? Rahim, you don't understand anything. Rahim is the slowest in the whole school." He heard these lines every single day, and every day they cut him a little deeper. One afternoon, Rahim sat under a large banyan tree outside the school. In his hand was another exam paper, covered in red marks. He looked at it for a long time, his eyes filling with tears. He wanted to be smart. He wanted to make his parents proud. But no matter how much he tried, he kept failing. He crumpled the paper and held it in his fist. He didn't cry loudly. He just sat there quietly, the way poor children often do, quietly swallowing their pain, because no one has time to hear it. When he walked home that day, he tried to hide the sadness in his eyes. He passed the rice fields where farmers worked under the hot sun. Some smiled at him, some asked how school was going, but he couldn't answer. He just nodded and kept walking. At home, his father was cutting wood outside the house. His father always looked tired, as if life had pushed him too hard. Rahim didn't show him the exam paper. He didn't want to add more weight to his father's shoulders. Inside the house, his mother was cooking rice. When she saw Rahim, she smiled in a way that made the whole room warm. She gave him food with so much love, as if she believed he deserved the best in the world, even when he had nothing. Rahim sat down quietly and ate. His mother noticed the sadness in his face, but she didn't ask. She knew her boy. She knew he would speak when ready. That night, Rahim sat under a weak lamp and tried to study again. But it felt impossible. The numbers still twisted, the lines still danced, and the letters still looked like strangers. He rubbed his eyes, held his head, and sighed. Finally, he fell asleep on his book. Days passed. More failures came. More laughter followed him. More comments hurt him. People in the village started calling him a useless boy, a boy who would never become anything, a boy who might end up cutting wood like his father or working in the fields forever. But deep inside Rahim's heart, there was something strange. A small, quiet voice whispered to him every day, "Don't give up. Don't break. Not yet." One evening, after another painful day at school, Rahim walked to the riverbank. It was peaceful there. The water moved slowly, the wind blew softly, and he felt like he could breathe again. He sat down and picked up a stick. Without thinking, he started drawing shapes in the sand. At first, it was simple: a circle,
a square, a small house. But then he drew something more detailed. He drew a chair. Then he drew a table. Then he drew a house design with windows, doors, and patterns. His hand moved fast. His mind became calm. His heart felt light. That was the first time Rahim felt good at something. He didn't know a man was watching him. A carpenter from the village was walking home when he saw Rahim drawing in the sand. He stopped, stared, and then slowly came closer. He bent down and asked gently, "Did you make these designs?" Rahim nodded shyly, not sure if he had done something wrong. The carpenter smiled wide. "These are amazing."
Rahim blinked. No one had ever used that word for him. The carpenter asked Rahim to follow him to his workshop. Rahim hesitated. He had never been invited anywhere before, but he went. The workshop was full of wood, tools, sawdust, and the warm smell of handmade furniture. Rahim looked around in wonder. The carpenter gave him paper and said, "Draw something for me." Rahim took a pencil and started drawing. His hands moved like magic. He drew a small stool, then a shelf, then the plan of a tiny house. The carpenter looked shocked. "Boy, this is a gift. You have a real gift." That single line changed everything. Rahim felt something alive inside him, something he had never felt before. A strange mix of pride and hope filled his heart. From that day on, Rahim visited the workshop every evening. The carpenter taught him how to measure wood, how to cut straight lines, how to polish surfaces, and how to design furniture. Rahim learned so fast that it surprised even the carpenter. While Rahim continued failing at school, something else grew inside him: skill, confidence, and love for creating things with his hands. Soon, villagers started hearing about the poor boy who made beautiful designs. People came to see his work. Some asked him to design small stools, shelves, or simple furniture. Rahim worked with full focus, and his pieces came out clean and beautiful. The same students who once laughed at him began to look at him differently. They stopped teasing him. Some even asked how he learned to draw so well. Rahim didn't show off. He didn't talk much. He just smiled softly. One day, his school teacher heard about his talent and visited the workshop. The teacher couldn't believe what he saw. Rahim, the boy who always sat silent and scared in the last row, was moving around the workshop with confidence, measuring wood, drawing designs, and helping the carpenter. The teacher walked to him and said, "Rahim, I am proud of you." Rahim felt his eyes fill with tears. These were the words he had wanted to hear his whole life. Time passed. Rahim became better and better. He designed chairs, tables, shelves, and even small house models. People started paying him. And for the first time in his life, Rahim brought money home to his parents.
His father looked at the money in shock. His mother held it with trembling hands and cried quietly. Rahim hugged them both. The poor boy who had once felt like a failure was slowly becoming a hope for his family. As years passed, Rahim grew into a young man. He saved money, studied more designs, learned from the carpenter, and finally opened his own small workshop. It was nothing fancy, just a wooden shed with tools. But to Rahim, it felt like a dream. He put up a sign, "Rahim Wood Designs." The village celebrated. People gathered to see the place. His parents stood proudly beside him. The boy who once hid his exam papers now showed his designs to everyone. Rahim did not forget his past. He did not forget the pain, the laughter, the failures. Instead, he used all of it as fuel to move forward. He began teaching other young boys who struggled at school, boys who people called slow, useless, or dumb. Rahim knew those words hurt deeply, so he always spoke kindly. He taught the boys how to draw, how to cut wood, how to measure things, and how to dream. He told them, "You are not weak, you just need the right skill." Rahim became more than a carpenter. He became a guide, a mentor, a hero in his village. He built classroom benches for the local school. He made desks and shelves. He made furniture for free for families who were too poor to buy any. His hands, which once shook with fear while holding a pencil, now created beauty. One day Rahim visited his old classroom. He sat again in the same last row seat. He looked at the board, the windows, the desk where he once cried silently, but this time he smiled. The place that once made him feel small now felt like a memory of how far he had come. As Rahim walked out, he whispered, "Thank you for everything." Rahim also visited the carpenter who discovered him. The old man had grown weaker with age. Rahim held his hands and said, "You changed my life." The carpenter smiled proudly because he knew Rahim had gone further than anyone expected. Years later, Rahim built a strong wooden house for his parents, a house made with his own designs, his own hands, and his own success. His mother touched the walls, crying softly. His father wiped tears and hugged him tightly.
Rahim stood between them, smiling with a heart full of peace. One evening, Rahim walked to the same riverbank where everything began. He sat down, closed his eyes, and remembered the small stick drawing in the sand. He remembered the laughter at school, the failures, the pain, but also the small voice inside him that never went silent. The voice that said, "Do not break." He whispered into the wind, "I made it." The wind moved softly around him as if the world itself agreed. Rahim had not just succeeded, he had transformed. He had rebuilt himself. He had shown his village and the whole world that failure is not the end. It is only the beginning for those who refuse to give up. And this is the story of Rahim, the boy who failed again and again, but never let life break him.